everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Andrew Discusses, where I take a look at some weird shit, talk about it, and then get your opinions in the comments when you tell me to go to hell. But either way, I digress. Something's always been bothering me. Now, I am a huge fan of Power Rangers. Now, to be clear, I am a huge fan of the old school Power Rangers, basically the original Saban era. I'll say some of the Disney era, and at this point, the less said of the Neo Saban era, the better. I really had a sour taste in my mouth after Super Mega Force and Mega Force and Super Mega Force, and basically, yeah, I didn't have a good taste in my mouth after that. But either way, I'm a fan of Power Rangers. I always have been since I was a kid. And the one thing that's always bothered a lot of us fans is what the fuck happened to the Turbo or to the Zeo powers in Turbo? And there have been numerous theories, and that's all they are at this point, fan theories, because there hasn't been any official reasoning. Now, of course, Sentai footage, Sentai footage, Sentai footage. That's going to be the go-to excuse. And, yeah, that's the easiest excuse to give when you don't actually have one to give. In this case, though, however, I have a theory. After rewatching some of Linkara's episodes of History of Power Rangers and bringing my mom into the franchise a little bit better than she was beforehand, a thought dawned on me. Turbo, a Power Rangers movie. This was the second Mighty... This was... not even the Mighty Morphin. Well, no, this was the second movie after Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie, which was the very first ever movie I saw in theaters. Really cool. And it kind of made me think for a minute. Why would you get rid of the Zeo powers? Then, after watching a lot of behind-the-scenes videos and other reviewers and other people, they're like, yeah, there was cut content, there was cut this was cut, that was cut. Everywhere there was cuts. It was basically like bureaucracy, I guess, in a way. There was cuts everywhere. But in this case, it was just stuff lent on the cutting room floor of this movie, and in all honesty, it shouldn't have. There was apparently, obviously the one scene that's on the back of the freaking DVD and the VHS tape when I had originally gotten it, of Tommy putting out a fire in the middle of the jungle. That wasn't there. There was apparently a fight where he was supposed to be fighting a crocodile. That wasn't there. A cut scene of Adam and Tanya getting their royal asses whooped and their Zeo suits destroyed. That wasn't there. And, yeah, it begs the question, what the hell happened to the Zeo powers? Well, I have a theory. And I want to bring this out to you in a discussion-like format because I want your opinion. I want to know if my theory holds water, because I think it does. I think that I have, beyond a doubt, okay, I think I have the de facto theory as to what the happened to the Zeo powers. So, hear me out, and maybe by the end of this video, you can tell me I'm a moron. I'd welcome it. In fact, if you leave a comment anyway, they're good for the YouTube algorithm. It shows YouTube that I am not a loser. Even though I know I am, but I'm not a loser. Anyway, my theory goes as such. The Zeo powers are derived from the Zeo crystal. Now, you remember that from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Season 3, the MacGuffin crystal, as Linkara had put it, that they had to separate in Master Vile and Metallic Armor after retrieving it, and then in Mighty Morphin Alien Rangers had to go on a quest to retrieve it. Yeah. Whereas you couldn't have just stuck it in the command center and put it in a force field or something in the command center. Yeah, no, let's just separate it and, yeah, we'll never speak of it again. Right, got it. Well, that's what gave them the Zeo powers. And the Zeo powers were the strongest form of powers they're ever going to get. Hell, Zeo was the best Power Rangers season, hands down. Actually, it's tied between that and the third season of Mighty Morphin for me as my all-time favorite, because I do love the Shogun Megazord. So, obviously, yeah, I am somewhat biased in this. The next favorite season out of besides those two would be In Space, for obvious reasons. I was a huge, fan of Power Rangers, and that closed out the Zordon era, with Lost Galaxy basically being the epilogue. But, here's the thing. When Zeo ended, and by the way, it ended really stupid. I'm sorry, it did. It ended really stupid. It just ends. They save Trey of Triforia. Jason loses the gold powers. And that's it. Life goes back to normal. Rita, Zed, Goldar, and Rito blew up the Machine Empire, declaring we're back. And then the next thing we get to Turbo, where we're shifting into Turbo. Do we have to shift into Turbo? Do we really have to shift into Turbo? We just not shift into... never mind. I hated Turbo. Then again, I never liked the Sentai it was based on either, so there's that. But anyway, in Turbo Power Rangers movie, at the start of it, Rocky gets injured while performing a karate move. See, they're practicing for this karate tournament to raise money for a charity. Basically, raise money to keep a youth center alive or a foster home or something alive. And, it's a shelter. Okay, cool. So the shelter's going to stay around. Woohoo. Perfect. That's great. It's Angel freaking Grove, where if they're not doing a charity function of some kind, I don't think they're functioning for the day. But anyway. So, Rocky's injured. Now, obviously, you can't have a member of your team down for an extended period of time when you possibly need them. And we got the Zeo powers. However, the Zeo powers are kind of linked to the Zeo Rangers. If you think about it as a similar way to how the Gold Ranger powers are linked to Trey of Triforia, and they're basically based on Triforian DNA, meaning that you needed 3 people in order to operate the one power. There's 3 parts of a Triforian. There's 3 entities that come together in harmony to form the Gold Ranger powers. So that's cool. But remember, these are the Zeo powers. They're based similarly off of this, Sentai footage-wise anyway, and it would make sense that they would bond to whoever they're connected to, hence making them stronger, and the crystal will continue to get stronger. Yet, here's the thing. Remember way back, Season 1, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Day of the Dumpster. Zordon gave the powers to the teens, and at the end of the episode gave them the 3 rules that they had to abide by in order to keep the protection of the powers. Rule number 1, never use your powers for personal gain. Rule number 2, do not escalate a fight unless Rita forces you to. And rule number 3, keep your identity a secret. No one must ever know you're a Power Ranger. Well, obviously, rule number 3 had to be thrown out the window at the finale of In Space for obvious reasons, because the citizens of Angel Grove were about to sacrifice themselves for the Rangers. That they couldn't have that. So obviously, yeah, we had to change that. But in regards to the other 2 rules, that's where my theory kind of holds on here. But I digress. Rocky's injured. The next time we see Rocky in the movie, he's laying in a hospital bed. Now, this is a back injury. Okay, this is bad. He's got a neck brace on. He's not moving. He even said, "Oh, my back," when he landed on the floor. Hard. So, back injuries don't go away easily. They don't out of existence. You don't snap your fingers and, "Oh, wow, I'm healed. I can dance. Woohoo!" No, that shit don't happen. Even grounding this in a bit of reality, it would stand the reason that, he's injured. His back. He'd be out of commission for a long time. I'm wondering if they used the Zeo Crystal to heal or speed up his healing. Because at the end of the movie, which I would say at best is 3 days, maybe 3 days, if not a little less. You cannot tell me that Rocky was completely fucking healed in 3 days. It's not possible. He would even have been let out of the hospital for 3 days, at least. No way. And in the movie, he's walking around. Granted, he kind of had this, I have to pretend I'm still injured for a while look, but it's like he's healed. Especially when you get to the very first episode of Turbo, and he's walking around like it's nothing. You hurt your back. Your back was injured. You do not just get up and walk around from that. Even if it was only temporary, like you just pulled a muscle or something, you're still feeling it for days on end. Trust me on this, I know. So, yeah, there is no way in the holiest parts of hell that you're healed after a couple days. So he's fine. He's walking around. Because now, we remember that they used the entire Zeo crystal to keep, they were basically using their Zeo powers to keep the Gold Ranger staff energized when Treya Triforia was separated into 3 parts. So obviously, the Zeo crystal can heal. It's powerful. This thing gets stronger the more it's used. Over time, it keeps getting stronger and stronger. So it is a possibility. Now, here's the thing. What we got for the rest of the Turbo movie was new powers and the old powers not working anymore. My theory into this is simply this. The Rangers had a shard, I'm going to say a shard of the crystal, that they could use should the need arise to have to fight. The shard would be enough to keep them powered up in their normal civilian forms and might possibly be able to sustain a morph for, let's say, maybe 5 minutes max. We're not saying be able to pilot a Zord here. No. Oh, God, no. That's not happening. But maybe, just maybe, the crystal will hold enough power, or at least the shard will, to essentially allow them to keep on pace with the villains. Keep in mind, at this point, they would have assumed that Lord Zed is, the main villain right now again, because the Machine Empire is destroyed. Well, the Zeo powers could walk through the Tangas, no problem. They could walk through any monster that Rita and Zed would come out with, no problem. Even the Rangers themselves, now being more experienced, more wise, more stronger than they were before, would be able to hold their own, even in civilian form, against them. This would hold credence, then, to the cut fight scene with Adam and Tanya and their suits being destroyed when they get back to the power chamber. They had to transform, and the problem is that their shards were not strong enough to maintain the transformation, so it started breaking down. If you want a prime example of why their suits would be destroyed then, look at the end of Power Rangers Turbo. When the command center was, when the power chamber was destroyed. Oh, it's the same thing. But when it was destroyed, and the 5 came out of the rubble after Divatox ran off to the Sumerian planet at the behest of Dark Spectre, they basically were tattered. Their suits were tattered. There were cuts, there were tears. The minute the power separated from them, their regular clothes were beat to hell. That would tell me that the powers basically just take whatever you're wearing and thus amplify it. Kind of gives the whole meaning of why they wear a similar color to what their color is. Because, it's just bonding to whatever you're wearing to create the, force field, as it were. If you actually think about it, all the morphine does is just create a small barrier between you and the outside world. It's basically putting on an electromagnetic coat of particles that are connected to the massive morphine grid. When you get hit, it causes a bit of an overload in that one spot. But it's basically a massive shield. If you take too much damage, you're going to see chinks in the armor. So it does stand to reason for that. So with the Zeo shards that I'm assuming that they would have had, they may not have been able to sustain a morph. It does make sense. Look at Kat's failed morph sequence in the movie. She tried morphing into Zeo Ranger 1 Pink, and the minute she hit the water, it fizzled out. It's basically the equivalent of trying to stick a AAA battery that barely has any juice left, and you were using it to power a flashlight for, let's say, 8 months. It gives a dim light at this point. And then you're like, there's still enough juice left in this thing. I'm going to try putting it into this flashlight. The bulb's just bad. And it barely gives you any light, or it stays on for half a second. That's the equivalent. The shards that they had weren't powerful enough to sustain a morph, or if it was, couldn't sustain it for long periods of time. It would make sense. Keep in mind, all Kat got out of her fall was a busted ankle. It could have been a lot worse than what it was, and the fact that that's all she got shows that the shard that she had actually would have kept her pretty much safe. That being the less of the injury that she could have sustained. It's just a screwed up ankle. Hey, compared to possibly a busted, ruptured leg, that's a miracle. So the shard still protected you, it just couldn't sustain a morph. Makes sense. So there is that. However, keep in mind again, what the hell? Because then you have to remember that supposedly Adam and Tanya were fighting Divatox's forces. It is possible that her forces might have been stronger than Mondo's forces, or her Piranatrons at the time might have been stronger than the Cogs, because, keep in mind, she's a space pirate. They have to be able to hold their own. Look at freaking Gokaiser, for God's sakes. They have to be able to hold their own. They just can't go in here and go, hey, we're not going to die, I'm not going to die, and just destroy everything and hope and pray that they all survive. They have to be able to sustain themselves. I mean, they're pretty much experienced in their own right. It's like, look, you just have a little more experience fighting than you, so they can fight dirty. You're going to fight clean. They're going to fight dirty. It's basically like the kid in the sandbox chucking sand into the bully's eyes and running like hell. It's the same concept. So there is that. However, why then could they not just take the rest of the powers back and then go off to the island? Well, obviously, Rocky still needs them to be healed, so they can't just take the powers from them. So, you have a shard of a Zeo crystal that's probably about as powerful as a dying AAA battery at this point. So basically, it's no more powerful than Serpentera's AAA battery. What happens then? You can't fight anything. Well, obviously, the powers weren't strong enough to take on Malagor. If they couldn't even handle Divatox's forces in that cut scene, and the fact that Kat's morph failed, that would prove to Zordon, look, it's either take the Zeo powers, which you need all 5 of you to even pilot the Zeo Megazord, which Rocky's still out of commission, or we come up with some quick and dirty idea here for some new powers. Remember when the Autobots landed on Earth and they took the form of vehicles? There you go. Remember the powers that they had beforehand were based off of animals. They had time to basically figure everything out and justify everything. Now it's cars. Quick, easy, dirty as hell. Why? They're in a time crunch. Divatox is on her way to basically wake up Malagor, to take the powers. Obviously, they need some type of a vehicle to get there. They have a ship that can take them into the air, that can take them onto the island, but they're going to need some type of Zords to fight Malagor should the need arise. It's possible that Zordon told Alpha and the other Rangers, let's get started on this, and we'll just quick and dirty make you some Zords. It would tie up with the Sentai footage, which, by the way, does suck. Car Ranger was a horrible Sentai. But here's the thing. It fits. But my theory at this point is holding water, especially for the first few episodes of Turbo's actual series, not just the movie. The cars motif would be simple. How do we get, the cars? Well, the only way we can get these is basically this. We find some vehicles that are out there, scan them, have the power chamber basically create them into Zord form, or find some junkyard ones, which wouldn't be that difficult to teleport a junkyard thing there, blow it up with the ray, which I'm sure they have, some type of ability to do it, tap it into the morphine grid, make it grow, make it bigger, make it so it can combine with the others, and really just go to town on it. It would take maybe all of probably a few hours, I want to say, if they all work on it together. The whole slapping down on the Simon thing, yeah, I'm going to say that's stupid too, but it kind of works too to explain something. They're having to put what's left of the Zeo power that they have themselves into this. That then basically is enough to recharge them by tapping into the morphine grid to give it an extra boost, My guess would be Zordon probably chipped in a little bit himself, like he did when Tommy had originally lost his Green Ranger powers. So obviously, it's enough to hold its own. Zordon's little boost is enough to basically give it enough to start it up, and then the Rangers themselves giving energy into it, obviously it would put it at a much higher level then. So it makes sense. Now, here's the flip side of this, and I know this one's going to hurt. Why not then just go back to using the Zeo powers after they defeated Malagor? Well, I think I have that answer too. Remember when Zordon said, do not escalate the fight? That would be escalating the fight. They have these newer powers. The reason why Justin had to join them and why Rocky didn't come back, aside from Steve Cardenas leaving, was because the powers themselves were now too strong. On top of that, with Rocky leaving, they wouldn't be able to use the Zeo powers. At least not use the Zeo Megazord or the Super Zeo Zords, because they would need all 5 of them to do that. You can't exactly give the Zeo shard to Justin. Granted, okay, yes, Billy gave his shard to Tanya, but he had never actually claimed the shard prior to her taking it. He didn't stand there and go, okay, here, let me have the powers. Okay, here, I'm going to give the powers to you now. No. He said, no, I'm giving mine to you, and then it just went to her then. So that kind of gives you the idea that the Zeo crystal shards, or the subcrystals, weren't able to be separated from the Rangers. Therefore, the 4 of them have the backup powers of the Zeo powers after Rocky didn't need the crystal anymore, but Justin wouldn't have that. So why then not have them just take on the mantle? Well, Rocky's leaving. The other Rangers are staying around. Rocky says he's done being a Ranger, and Justin's the new Blue Ranger. So they need a way to keep Justin from screwing up. Obviously, you can't trust the kid to do what the adults pretending to be teenagers have been doing, so they have to be there. And this, my theory, actually, I'm not even joking, I wrote this all up on a piece of paper. My theory holds water, and that's the sad part. At least, to me, it holds water. With Justin being unable to wield the Zeo powers, the crystal might have been too powerful or too weak. Keep in mind, the final battle in Zeo might have stretched the crystals a little too far, and they might have been in a, okay, we're going to recharge for a little while mode, and Rocky getting injured is like, well, we can recharge and heal him at the same time, but here's some shards you can use in the time being so that you can still morph if the need be. But with Justin, he may not be able to, wield the Zeo powers. Then there's also the fact that the Zeo crystal itself might just be too weak now after healing Rocky. Keep in mind, he's walking around after a freaking back injury. I don't care who you are, superpowered human or not, you're not getting around like that. You're not up and walking around like it's freaking nothing. So, yeah, I'm kind of thinking that the Zeo crystal was used to heal him. After it was used to heal him, it might have been a little too weak for the Rangers to use, A. B, with the Zeo subcrystals being tied to the specific Ranger, they weren't able to give Justin Rocky's subcrystal. So that's B. C, the crystal was just too drained. I'm just literally going to go with it was just too drained. I mean, seriously. Justin's not able to wield the crystal, so either it can't be separated from the person it's connected to, which would make sense. It's too weak to use anymore, which is what I'm going with, or it's just too powerful. And it's like it's basically the, hey, this is Plan Z, because we'd be escalating the fight at this point. We can't escalate the fight against the forces of evil unless they do it themselves. That was Zordon's entire thing. Do not escalate a fight unless Rita forces you to. Okay, well, Rita's not here anymore, but it would stand for whatever villain you're facing. Don't escalate the fight unless Mondo forces you to. Don't escalate the fight unless Divatox forces you to. It's the same standard. Don't use your powers for personal gain, obviously, and don't tell anybody your freaking secret. Well, yeah, because you don't want people taking you for granted. It's the whole Superman, do not, do everything for the humans. They need to learn from themselves, otherwise you'll be doing everything for them. So either all that, or because the crystal was used to grow the Rangers massively tall, the shards were used and depleted. It was used to basically beat, to heal Rocky, and it was too weak to fight. It might have been forced into a recharge state, meaning that because of that, the crystal would be rendered inert, useless to the Rangers until it could fully recharge. And that's a possibility too. Because, remember, the Zeo powers do come back, sadly in Super Mega Force, but not to each their own. It would also make sense and explain why Adam didn't use Zeo Ranger 4 Green in his return appearance in Power Rangers in Space. The crystal was still too weak. Now, here's the thing though. It might have taken the crystal centuries to recharge. However, when we lost the beloved mentor, Zordon, the crystal might have gained a massive power boost. Remember the Z-Wave that Andros had to release in order to save the entire universe at the cost of Zordon? Zordon telling him that you know what you have to do, you're a Power Ranger, shatter my energy tube, the energy will fly out and will save the entire universe. And thus Zordon sacrificed himself to save every single being in the universe by purifying all of the evil. That might have recharged the Zeo crystal. It is a possibility. The Z-Wave basically destroyed every instance of evil in the entire universe. It wiped it out like it was nothing. So either Zordon took the crystal back with him to Eltar, which brings up another issue with the whole Turbo finale, how that freaking Sada director knew about Eltar and instantly was like, Eltar? When do they need it? Yeah, it's like Zordon told him ahead of time. So obviously, either Zordon took the Zeo crystal back with him to Eltar, which would be a stupid move, because he couldn't be able to use it, or the Z-Wave recharged the crystal, knowing that, look, not only am I going to be sacrificing myself, eradicating evil from the universe, but at the same time, I'm recharging this, because if the need ever comes up, they're the most powerful Rangers the universe has ever fucking seen and ever will see. I'm going to recharge this crystal to save the universe if I have to. And it would make sense, because now the Z-Wave recharges the Zeo crystal. Now they can use the Zeo powers again. Well, and how come Tommy didn't use them in Dino Thunder? Maybe he didn't realize that the powers were recharged. That is a possibility. Gotta remember, he's a freaking teacher now. He's more concerned with the Dino Gems. Once he found the Dino Gems, it's like, oh, okay, interesting. Well, how come Adam didn't use the Zeo powers then in Once a Ranger in Operation Overdrive? Again, he may not have known. Alpha might have found that out after repairing the morphine grid and then had to repair the Zeonizer. Remember, Adam was one of the two that was fighting in the cutscene that basically, it was Adam and Tanya who were fighting in the cutscene that basically showed their suits tattered. It stands to reason his Zeonizer might have been damaged. No point in repairing that if you're going to be giving everybody new powers based off of what you can do quick and dirty. It does make sense in a way, but here's the thing. Repair them later on, hence why in Super Mega Force you see the Zeo Rangers. But why did Tommy use the Green Ranger powers? I don't fucking know. Oh, well, obviously because Zeo Rangers had their own thing, there's only 4 of them there because Tommy, who had the power of Zeo Ranger 5 Red, and also was the Green Ranger and the White Ranger, you didn't see either of those two there either because he was there as the Green Ranger, the original powers. I mean, technically, he kind of had Saba with him, which that opens up a couple more questions that I didn't even think about. How the fuck did you get Saba? No, seriously, how did you get... Wait. How did you get Saba? No, actually, no, that would make sense, because you would still have that Morpher yet. Like, Adam had the original Black Ranger Morpher. All right, that would make sense. That would make sense how you'd still have Saba. Okay, the ninja powers were destroyed, so it would make sense how you would still have Saba. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. That's it. So either Zordon took the crystal with him to Eltar and it was destroyed, and the Ranger's shards were recharged with the Z Wave, or I'm gonna go with the Z Wave recharged the entire Zeo crystal, which then basically recharged the Rangers. Why they didn't use the suits later on and the powers later on is beside me. Hell, he finally did use Zeo Ranger 5 Red again in, what was it, Super Ninja Steel for that episode, where he had the Master Morpher. Maybe the Zeonizer was still damaged and the Master Morpher would just allow the older Rangers to morph into their different forms if they had different ones. I mean, keep in mind, Adam was the original Black Ranger. Well, sorry, not the. Sorry. Zach was the original Black Ranger, but Adam took over the Black Ranger powers at first. So, okay, can't argue with me on that one. It was a simple screw up. I forgot about Zach. So you figure, Zach could morph into his original Ranger form if he had to, but Adam could use Mighty Morphin Black, Zeo Ranger 4 Green. So you'd have a Master Morpher, which would make sense. He might have developed them with Alpha. Oh, it might have been a side project. Remember, he was running a karate studio, apparently. He might have came up with the idea, hey, look, realizing that after that Once a Ranger episode, hey, there's a good possibility that the world's going to be in danger and new team of Rangers is going to fuck up. He might have been working with Alpha. It's like, hey, we're going to tap into the morphing grid and try to fix some morphers. Let's make a Master Morpher. I'll hand them out and I'll send them out to the others. That way, if the need ever arises, they'll know what to do. And that would make sense. It does. That makes sense. So why didn't they use the powers afterwards? They didn't have access to them. The Zeonizers might have been shorted out with their battles. And at that point, Adam might have been working with Alpha to create the Master Morphers. Once the Master Morphers were made, there you go. Tap into Zeo Ranger 5 Red. Zeo Ranger 4 Green. Rocky could transform into Mighty Morphin Red. Or they might have had shards left over of the lost ninja powers, and thus could tap into, Red Ranger power, and then tap into, Zeo Ranger 3 Blue. Granted, Tanya would get screwed. She would only have, Zeo Ranger 2 Yellow, but it would work. At least in the long scheme of things, it would work. It makes sense, but that's it. That's my entire theory as to why they had to switch to the turbo powers. Basically, they used the Zeo Crystal to heal Rocky. After that, it was either the crystal was too weak for them to use, too drained for them to use, or would be escalating the fight, which they weren't allowed to do as per Zordon's rules. As for the turbo powers, it's quick and dirty. They just looked at a junkyard. It's like, okay, look, there's an off-road car there. Okay, there's that there, that there, that there, and that. Okay, let's take those 5 and bring them back here. They might have been using the power chamber to, make the Zords make the vehicles massive, figure out a way to interlock them, and just had them be created that way. It makes sense. Remember, when they originally rode the Zords in Zeo, they were basically the size of an actual car. It was after they went to the island that they grew massive then later on. There you go. So it showed that the Zords were just micro-sized until my guess would be they needed to transform them, or until the Zords were fully operational. It might have just been enough to just have them in driving form so they could get going, and Zordon might have said something in a cut line that, Rangers, you won't be able to use a Megazord until the Zords are completely energized. It'll take a while for that to happen, but don't worry, you'll know what'll happen. Makes sense. So there you go. That is literally what I think happened to the Zeo powers versus the turbo powers. Why we had to get the turbo powers, why we had to lose the Zeo powers, and it makes freaking sense. I'm not even joking. I literally wrote this out after watching that episode of Atop the Fourth Wall's History of Power Rangers, and I'm like, wait a minute. And I went back through the movie, and I'm looking at the movie, and I'm like, this holds water. But let me know what you think. Does my theory hold water? Does my theory hold water? Is it possible that I might have solved the mystery for the last how many freaking years? Let me know in the comment section below. Don't forget, spread this video around. I want to know what other Power Ranger fans think. Does my theory hold water? Let me know, because I'm not buying that bullshit that the Zeo powers don't work in water, because obviously that's a lie when the Super Zeo zords could function underwater. Remember Super Zeo Zord 4? I was underwater fighting! So try again! The Zeo powers don't work underwater. My ass! My ass! I want to know if my theory holds water, because if it does, I want credit for it! I might have solved the problem! I might have solved the mystery! It makes freaking sense! Granted, there's also that, not canon, yet the one person believes it is canon Scorpion Rain thing, which I hadn't seen, but could explain a few things. But either way, I think my theory holds water. I think it holds water. Let me know. Tell me in the comments what you think. And until next time, I'm Andrew Rhodes, and this has been Andrew Discusses. Bye, everybody.